I guess I should provide some form of context for why I'm here. My name is Donovan Song. I write novels and do that kind of thing. During my research, I was digging more deeply into political philosophy, and I write science fiction. So it started coming off as, what political philosophies could we look at going forwards and things like that. If I wanted to write a new religious movement, for example, in my story, what kind of things would I include? Or if I wanted to write a new political movement, what would that look like? So I think that some of the best answers going forwards usually are going back to the past. Now, I wrote a piece and I put it on a substack, which is completely free for you to read a more articulated version of this with supporting case examples, so on and so forth. But the question for me is, can the anarchist go to space? Now, the question itself seems kind of silly, perhaps, at first. You might not really know what any of that means, but what I'm really trying to get at here is, can large, complex organizational structures or products exist outside of the current frameworks that we have? So, using this analogy, if we say, can the anarchist go to space? If anarchy is defined as a political philosophy without hierarchy or means of volunteer ethic and coordination, would they be able to achieve something like large-scale space travel? Now, when we look at the history of space travel, we've seen it happen with two predominant varying political philosophies, being capitalism and democracy with the United States of America going up against communism, socialism with the United, USSR. This is very famously the space race, which I believe was ended in 1969, if I'm not mistaken. And even if you look at both of those structures, yes, they're very different, especially with the means of how economics are distributed. What is similar between them is that they have hierarchies. You need hierarchies to function. You need someone to kind of report to. Now, I don't think hierarchies are 100% absolutely necessary for everything. But when we're talking about things with absolutely massive, large-scale human organization, you do need a form of hierarchy, and that does kind of leave the anarchist struggling a little bit. But, to the benefit of anarchism, which, by the way, as I find is a very romantic political philosophy. It might not be the most practical, but it certainly is romantic in a lot of different ways. An important part about anarchy is that it has happened before in the past, several different times. Actually, we can look at the Spanish Revolution in Aragon and Catalonia, or we can look at Ukraine with, I believe it is Makhnovishchina's revolution, and how they federated trade and things amongst like that. Like, it is possible, it works, particularly on a small scale, but, we live in an increasingly more globalized society. Everything is kind of meshing together. It's hard for the anarchist to push through, and it's even harder if you were an anarchistic revolutionary to change the society that we have now to meet your current kind of goals. You'd have to start on an individualistic level and try and get a small community together and isolate yourselves and find all of your basic needs met. But even if you were to do that, right, I think libertarians to a degree fall in the same category. Even if you were to do that, if you were to isolate, if you were to grow your own food and live off the land, there is an inevitable problem with that. You won't have to face it in your lifetime, but several million years in the future, the sun's gonna die out. And when the sun dies out and you don't have a means to get off this rock, you're gonna die too. And that's kind of an unfortunate consequence of life on this planet, but that is also a reality that one day we're going to have to fight and face. And if we don't have space travel or haven't begun space colonization, all conscious life as we know it will die on this rock as well. Now, with that being said, I don't want to completely bash upon anarchy, because there are some very important technological developments that came from people who are either anarchistic leaning or claim to be anarchists, and a lot of this actually comes in the form of decentralized networks and things like open source software. If you look at the history of open source software, like the Bazaar and the Cathedral, and the way that they approach, engineering software at the early stages of the internet. It's really quite incredible what you can actually achieve with volunteer cooperation. But the lessons from that, I think, are things that we can take away from and see how important it is to have a good cause. I think that it goes for the merit of a good cause. And I think that's actually something that we can find in common between all three political systems. Capitalism, the cause is your own liberty, your free will. And at times when they unite, it's for this form of like national identity, whatever that may mean. And you can see the kind of same thing that happened in the USSR. The state and the national and the union, they had a cause. They were fighting for something, and anarchists have that too. So I think when you look at how some of these technologies or political systems kind of come to fruition, I think the biggest driving factor is the hearts and souls of the men who run those organizations, who put it in the first place. And you don't need to have a political opinion to kind of recognize that people are very motivated by a good cause, and a cause that's true and unifying can put a lot of men together to do some pretty incredible things. And I think that's an important takeaway. But can the anarchists go to space? I don't think so. And you know what? Maybe if you're an anarchist and you feel a kind of way about the way that I articulated this, by all means, go ahead and tell me. I'd be happy to address the comments. For more facts about me, I don't have any political leanings. Perhaps maybe libertarian, perhaps, but even then I see shortcomings. I'm not entirely a socialist, nor am I a capitalist. I'm kind of just someone who's trying to figure it out. So don't be afraid. I'm happy to engage in whatever you're working on. But yeah, if you want to go check out a more well-articulated version of this, you can do so in the Substack link below. The only reason I'm doing that and this at the same time is because I hate reading from a script and sitting in front of a camera. I also don't like sitting in front of a camera, but you gotta put your name out there somehow. Yeah, I can guarantee you the written work is much more well-articulated than this. Anyways, my name is Donovan Song. I'm signing out. I will be back eventually with more work for you, perhaps. Peace.